My dad's new wife demanded that I break up with my girlfriend for my stepbrother, or leave. So, I left and never looked back. Now 12 years later, my stepbrother shows up at my door, blaming me for ruining his life. I, 32M, have been no contact with my dad's family for the last 12 years, and it all stems from his remarriage. My parents split up when I was about 10 or so because they fell out of love. At the age of 32, I understand what that means. I was kind of shocked and heartbroken about it as a kid. Due to that, I ended up lashing out at my parents a lot, and we went to family counseling together. However, it really only felt like my mom was the one putting in efforts to understand my point of view, POV, while dad had a hard stance of accepting life as it comes to you. Because of that, I was much closer to my mom than my dad and only ever stayed with him for a few months at a time. However, when I was 14, mom passed away in an accident, and I was forced to move in with dad. Those days were probably the worst time of my life, and it felt even worse because I was basically the only one grieving. My dad had been dating a woman named Beth, female, 49, for a few years, and they had gotten engaged around the same time as mom's passing. Dad prioritized his future with Beth over respecting mom and their shared past, and thus never showed any outward signs of sadness or grief, making me feel even more isolated as a teenager. Beth was also a handful during this time. Since I was an unexpected arrival in their household, she expected me to play by her rules, and also tried to take over as the maternal figure for me. I was obviously resistant to this, because it's not like she could replace my mom in the span of a few months. Even worse, she always favored her son Josh, male, 30, from a previous relationship. In classic overbearing parent style, she tried to meddle and get him a better spot on the football team, a better part in the school play, and all that jazz. Josh, to his credit, usually called his mom out for all of this behavior, but she still acted like a smother regardless. No matter how red-faced he got by her antics, he still reaped the benefits that his mom's string-pulling provided. So my teen years were pretty rough, dealing with the loss of my mom, my whipped dad who never said a word against Beth, and a pretty distant stepbro who was always a little awkward around me. All I knew was that I'd keep my head down and move out after college was over. I ended up going to UNC, which was in my home state, and to save money stayed with my dad and his family. This was something that both dad and Beth had agreed to. It's not like I was freeloading, I paid nominal rent and helped out with groceries. However, things got really tense after I started dating this girl Laura, female, 31, during my college years. I used to bring her home often, she had been introduced to the family, and it was clear that Josh had a thing for her. I didn't like this and had told him in private to stop acting like a creep around Laura, but it was clear that he still had feelings for her. Now, I thought it was just a crush and that it would pass, but this dude had fallen hard, he was dropping his grades in school, messing up his SE prep, and just acting like a lovesick puppy in general. To be honest, it wasn't my problem. I had tried to be the responsible older brother, and stopped calling my girlfriend over, while gritting my teeth over the fact that he was infatuated with her, and making no effort to hide it. He didn't get it though, and he probably didn't want to. From what I know now, Beth had checked in with her son due to his weird behavior, and he'd spilled all his lady troubles to her. Beth, through some mental gymnastics of her own, had decided that I was to blame for Josh's situation, and told my dad to deliver an ultimatum to me. However, back then I was completely blindsided by my dad sitting me down one day and saying, "Son, we had agreed that you would stay with us during your college years, but something has come up. Beth and I feel like you're distracting Josh with your activities and friends that you bring over. Because of that, we need to come to a new agreement." When I heard this from him, I got really confused, not knowing the context. I thought he might have been referring to my friends who came over to play games on my Wii every now and then, or perhaps I was being too loud at night with music. I had no idea what he meant, so I asked him, "What do you mean, Dad? Are my friends being a bad influence on Josh? I swear we haven't taught him anything wrong. Most of the time we stay out of each other's way." He replied, "Yeah, but that's not what I'm talking about, Opie. I think that you and I both know that Josh has strong feelings for Laura. What we were thinking, maybe you could break up with her to keep peace in the family." I laughed out loud when I heard this. It was by far the dumbest thing I'd ever heard in my life. Still chuckling, I went, "Sure, Dad. Why don't I break up an amazing relationship, because your kid doesn't know how to take no for an answer? I've already told him tons of times that he makes Laura uncomfortable, and I barely bring her over anymore. What is the problem anyway?" I knew he was beating around the bush, but I was starting to realize that Josh had gone all gung-ho with the, "if I can't have her, nobody can." Beth had probably asked Dad to talk to me about it to appease her son, and also make sure he doesn't waste any more time over this girl. I have no clue how they expected me to roll over on this though. It blew up into a huge fight, and I ended up choosing to stick with Laura, and move out of the house. One day I packed my bags and left, changing my cell number in the process too. I crashed at a friend's place for a few days, and eventually moved in with my girlfriend. Thankfully I was in college on scholarship. My main struggles came from paying for rent and utilities, but I hustled and worked nights to make it happen. At this point all bridges had been burned with my family. The only people I consider family currently are a few relatives on my mom's side. It's been 12 years since then, and guess what? Laura and I got married. Both of us are quite comfortable in our jobs and lives. In fact, we bought our first house together, and are trying for a baby. I genuinely think leaving my toxic family behind was the best decision I've made. However, a couple of days ago someone showed up at my doorstep. And that made me spiral back into thinking about my past a little. Josh somehow found out where I lived and came over one day saying that he needed to talk to me. I was too shocked to really react and silently let him in. After he made himself comfortable, we caught up a little. Although he already knew the general gist of my life, because he had apparently found out through social media, then he told me the real reason he was here. He explained many things about his infatuation with Laura, including his mom's involvement. However, he also added that he never wanted me to move out of the house, that it was something Beth devised all on her own. He said that after I'd stepped out, Mom seemed almost glad that I was gone, and the house became really cold and weird after that for him. The three of them ended up moving out of state a few months after I'd left. Something which I wasn't aware of, and Josh didn't know how to reach out to me back then.